I'm following the story of the Hebrews as they were led out of Egypt by Moses and wandered for 40 years. They start out oppressed by the Egyptians. Moses battles Pharaoh and is triumphant. The Hebrews are free, but their elation doesn't last long. Because soon they're hungry and they're lost and they don't know how to live without the constant direction of their masters. And so Moses goes up the mountain to talk to God, and the people seek comfort in the image of a golden calf. The result? They get to wander for 40 years. Their arrival at the promised land will come at a cost. And so God knows that the people need rules, and so they get rules. Moses goes up the mountain, brings down the 10 Commandments, but that doesn't stop their grumbling, because next they're grumbling about food, right? At least we had food in Egypt. They weren't free, but they were fed there, right? Humans. And so God feeds them. What do? Oh, why must we always eat the same thing over and over again? Humans. And then they say, we're thirsty. At least we had water in Egypt. And so God brings them water from a rock. And then they yell, the snakes are killing us. At least we didn't have snakes in Egypt. Except that they did. And at least here, God gave them a way to be healed from the snakes. It sort of reminds me of a love story gone wrong. A smitten young man keeps bringing gifts to the woman of his dreams, and she keeps acting as if this is the worst possible thing in her life. How could this man possibly think that she would like him? And yet he never gives up until the final scene of the movie where she relents and lets herself get caught. Now, what would that movie be like if she never got caught? Not much of a story, would it? In fact, it would get annoying pretty quickly, and I know this. I know this because of Kinnick. Now, Kinnick is the dog that rules the yard at the parsonage. Well, at least in the confines of the fence. Now, every time that Kinnick goes outside, he flies out that door in hot pursuit of the evil invaders in our backyard that inhabit the trees. How dare they enter the land of Kinnick? He runs out the doors before it even gets open. He skitters across the deck, sliding the last couple feet, leaps off into the yard, and barks at the birds and the squirrels and the rabbits and the trucks and the buses and the neighbors and probably imaginary things that only he sees. And he hasn't caught one yet. And I don't know if he'll ever catch one, but that doesn't stop him from putting his whole being into the pursuit. He does it with every ounce of him. Now, I don't think that Kinnick is annoyed by this. He probably enjoys this every single time he goes out, but I'm guessing the neighbors are annoyed. Now, this is the way that God has acted in the early part of the history of God's people. God puts God's whole being into pursuing us. God is relentless in the pursuit of humanity because God desires to love us and have us love God in return. And like that cheesy love story, God brings a gift. Humanity complains. God provides. Humanity decides to do it their own way. God provides. Humanity decides to make a new God. God provides. Humanity decides that it isn't good enough. And they act as if this is the worst possible thing in the world. And so how does God stack the odds in God's favor? Because gifts haven't worked. Freedom hasn't worked. The promised land hasn't worked. Over and over, humanity has decided that it knows better, and it ignores that God who provides for us. And so God sends Jeremiah. Jeremiah, I want you to tell the people to come back to me. Tell the people that this path that they were on will lead nowhere good. Tell them that I love them. And so Jeremiah goes and he tells the people this again and again. And then God comes up with a brilliant plan. God finds a way for humanity to always know God, but also to allow for humanity to choose whether or not they will follow. God provides, humanity decides, and we call that free will. I will make a new covenant with the people. It won't be like the last covenant which the people broke. This time I will write the covenant on their hearts. They will no longer need to teach each other to know the Lord, because they will already know me. Everyone will know me because I will be in them from the beginning. I will forgive them even if they break this covenant. I will not remember their sins. So God provides the covenant. God provides the promise. God provides the way that we can all live together. And then God lets humanity decide. They decide if they will pay attention to the code written in their hearts. They decide if they will turn to God. God provides. Humanity decides. Now, over the years, we've talked about this covenant in different ways. I mean, the history of the church. Jesus told us that the law that we followed to the letter was not about the law, but it was about the relationship that God desires. The law is essentially to love God and love each other, and we don't need the rules because we know what love is. It's written on our hearts. Now, even from a young age, we understand what is right and what is wrong. We know what hurts people, and we know that hurting people is wrong. Young children know that taking a cookie without asking makes mommy sad. And so they lie about taking the cookie. They want the cookie, but they don't want to hurt mommy, and so they lie about it. Right? We call that a conscience. But our conscience is an internal understanding of right and wrong. It is the thing inside us that may prevent us from doing wrong, or makes us feel bad if we choose the wrong thing. And sometimes this is even portrayed by a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. You should do it, don't do it. You should do it, don't do it. Each one trying to persuade us to their side. That internal process is available to us because God has written love on our hearts. Now, John Wesley referred to this love tattoo on our hearts as prevenient grace. Wesley taught that God's grace was a process that worked our entire lives. Grace first pursues us. It chases us. And then it takes hold of us in our hearts. And then it shapes us as we grow in our love of God. Wesley called these different aspects prevenient grace, the pursuit. Justifying grace, the catch. And sanctifying grace, the growth. The covenant that Jeremiah describes is God's way of offering grace from our first breath, from the moment that we begin life. God has been pursuing us. Our whole lives are like the chase scene from every movie and every TV show that we have ever watched. Which begs the question, will we be caught? Only if we want to be. God provides. We decide. Now, that doesn't sound like a very good plan if you're the one doing the chasing. God continues to chase us, but always remains just one step away from catching us, because God doesn't want to force us to love Him. God wants us to choose to turn around and to fall into the open arms of the God who waits for us. God wants to provide us with every opportunity to choose love, but leaves it for us to decide. God provides. We decide. And the love tattoo that is imprinted on our hearts, it's genius. It's a genius plan because we need love. As humans, we need love. We crave it. We can't live without it. It's because God imprinted love on our hearts. It's because it is such a fundamental part of us. We cannot live without it. And so we chase it. And it seems elusive until we figure out where we can get that endless supply of love that we need. That's God. God provides that love. We decide if we'll tap into it. And that's the beauty of God's prevenient grace, because we were designed for God's love. We need it desperately. And there is an endless supply of it. All we have to do is stop running. All we have to do is get caught. As we sit here, it is easy to see that the chase is pointless. We need the love that God is willing to give, but it feels like we can live without it. It feels like we can get love from other places, and so we run. We run, but God is always running after us. And if we let ourselves get caught, then we will get all the love that we will ever need. God provides. We decide. So decide to get caught again. Decide to let God's love fill that innate desire that was designed within you. And help others to make that decision for themselves. To get caught again. Would you pray with me, please? God, we love you and we thank you that you love us. Help us to remember that you are always pursuing us, no matter how fast we run. That we just need to get caught. For us to receive the covenant promise of everlasting love, an endless supply of that love that we so desperately crave. Help us to get caught again and help others get caught as well. In your name we pray.